Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, doing it backwards this time. Welcome to the Inside Out Effect podcast.
That's why we normally do it backwards, isn't it?
Absolutely,
do it backwards,
always backwards. Yeah. So this is episode 19. This is our Christmas special. And
hence the Christmas hats.
Yeah,
that was the clue right there. The Christmas was the hats. That was it.
And so today what we're going to be doing, this is episode 19 of the famous Inside Out Effect podcast. In this episode, we will be going back and covering nearly everything that we've covered over the last 19 episodes, ranging from anxiety, depression, stress, grief, OCD, sabotage, and much, much more.
So this episode is going to be 19 hours long because we're going to recap literally everything we've done in the past 19 episodes. So hang tight, and it'll be Christmas Day before you know it.
Yeah, so, yeah, absolutely. So... So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be covering all the different ranges of topics. We're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to go back and recap on some of the things that we've covered over the last 19 months. And obviously, so we can share this information out to you. We've had a load of fun doing this over the last 19. We set out really... it was an idea that we come up with. Obviously, both myself and Jonathan, with what we do in our careers, we thought that, and what we learned, we thought that it'd be really good if we could share this information with the general population, because there's a lot of misunderstandings about our health and what cures our health and all the rest of it. So that's what we set out to do, and ultimately, I think it's been an absolute success.
Yeah, no, we've had lots of great feedback, and we've had a lot of people come to us for help, and we've been a help. A lot of those people, and so the feedback's been amazing, the support has been amazing. Thank you so much for all your kind words that were mainly sent to Stephen, in fairness. All the kind words that you've sent us and encouragement that we've had for doing the podcast, because we were both nervous about it, weren't we?
Yeah.
We were a bit worried about doing it to begin with. And,
because you don't know what, because people are so preconditioned into the education and what they've been taught, especially when they go to the doctors, and they get told all this stuff, and everybody seems to have a take on the reason why they're ill or why they're sick, and ultimately there's a lot of stuff a lot of shit that we just make up, and then we believe that shit. And ultimately, we wanted to start breaking down some of those barriers. We wanted to start breaking down some of the real reasons why people get sick, why people get ill, and actually there is a lots of myths, especially around depression and anxiety, that it's a disease and it can't be cured. And we know categorically that we're literally resolving that in people every day. I mean, I did this morning with a girl this morning. So, so this is the reason why we set out to do it. Yeah. And we're down 19 episodes. We covered lots of things. And so we want to thank you guys, especially for watching, supporting us, giving us the feedback, interacting, and all the rest of it. I just want to say happy Christmas to Tracy, who just sent us a message. Happy Christmas, Tracy. We look forward to working with you in Hello Sue. Looking forward to seeing you in the new year. So for those of you who don't know, my name's Stephen Jakes. I sort of host this podcast. I'm a therapist. I'm from healingthemind.co.uk. I do the DTO, which was the great from the great Jonathan here, who come up with that process to.
Great.
Yeah, he's great. He's amazing. He plays himself down. He's a genius. And Jonathan obviously has been my co-host and my business partner. We co-founded and set up the Inside Out Effect, and hopefully in 2020 we'll be able to help solve and heal lots of people going forward. So let's welcome Jonathan. Jonathan Shaw, the amazing creator of the DTO system. So hello, Jonathan.
Hello. Your intro for me is not quite as good as you've had a lot of charismatic and debonair and all these lovely things, and it's not been great. It's kind of
I said genius.
You did say genius. That's true. Yes. I feel a bit underwhelmed with your intro. This Christmas special. Yeah, if you could.
Yeah.
What does that mean about me?
Yeah, what does that mean about you?
But you've done some really good intros for me, and that's some really lovely way of introducing me, and I appreciate that. And I couldn't have done this without you. I want you to know that.
No, thank you. No.
It's been I couldn't have done this without Stephen. Yeah. He's been amazing, and he's really taken DTO on, and he loves doing it, and he's helped a lot of people with it. And I couldn't do this on my own. I wouldn't want to do it on my own. I would, be boring without him. So
no, thanks. No, appreciate it. Yeah. So where should we start? I mean, I know that obviously the reason we started out was to help people, and it's how far we've come, really. I mean, I know just from the podcast alone and from a lot of the people that I've worked with, it's been a growth thing for the whole year for me, and it's just the more I do it, the more I learn. And like I've said in other podcasts, really, I don't think there's anything realistically from an emotional and mental perspective that I haven't been able to solve. I've not yet failed with anybody with this system, and a lot of people don't see out the whole process and will drop out after a couple. Yeah. But that's not due to the process. That's not due to the process, and so
sometimes their sabotage kicks in, they run away.
Yeah, absolutely, and I know that because obviously when I first started out, that was one of the things I had to deal with when I was starting to resolve all my stuff and all my issues. So so it's been a really good journey, and we've helped a lot of people. And so what we thought we'd do is we'd go back and recap on most of the episodes we've done and briefly touch on it. And then we can then move on to something else, and we'll just freestyle it today. But again, we really thank everyone for all the support that you've given us, and all the brave people. I put a post out on Facebook in the week, and I just said thanks to everybody. So I say change or nothing will change, and a lot of people have really embraced that, and a lot of people have come to me, and they've reached out to me. They've faced their fears, they've faced their demons, only to realise that actually they're not really demons at all.
No.
They're not really a problem. It's just all in their head. It's just guilt and shame. But actually when they come to it and get rid of it, they're like, why have I made such a big thing over something that's irrelevant? And so you might want to go talk about that.
A lot of people like that. They really think this thing that's in their head is massive and huge and really traumatic.
So personal and oh my God.
And often when you get to it, there's really not a lot there. Some people there is, obviously, depending on what they've been through.
Yeah.
But even so, most people's stuff is nowhere near as bad as they think it's going to be. Because most people haven't had the amount of trauma that it's just normal everyday things that have affected them. So it's not nowhere near. But because it may have happened in childhood, because it may have happened when they were younger, the emotional response from the child is still running, and they still think that's the adult response, but it's not. It's the child running it. So it feels a lot worse than it actually is.
Yeah, and the other thing as well is the shame. It's the shame or the admittance that it's the shame of it. And once you get rid of the shame, I mean, for me, when I first started out on my journey, I felt a lot of shame that there was this stigma about there was something wrong with me, and if there's something wrong with me, what will people think? And oh my God, it's that I'm a lesser person. And actual fact is, the more I've done this, the better person I've become. Yes, the far better person I've become. Yeah. And when I look back at the things I didn't address because of my ego, because of my thoughts of what other people might think, or just this inability to understand what was really going on, the shame around my past reactions, responses, and the guilt really kept me trapped. It wasn't until I actually faced it and went through it that I realised it was all just a big illusion. It is all an illusion, ladies and gentlemen. It really is, because once you go through it on the other side, the rainbows really do shine, and your life works on a high level. So. Yeah, I just wanted to say that.
No, it is a massive illusion that we get ourselves into, and it feels like a very real illusion. I will say it does feel very real and very scary at times and very lonely at times, and it can be very tough to deal with some things. But as Steve said, often when you do deal with it, it's not the big thing that we thought it was. Thank you very much, whoever just sent the likes and the love hearts a second ago. We appreciate that. That's really nice of you. Whoever just likes that, that's great. But no, it's not as scary as people think. Obviously, if you had severe trauma, that's a little bit scary sometimes. And what I find really funny, which I was going to mention, is that a lot of people, they really think that they're... I'm going to be really honest and brutal with people now. They really think they're being strong by not dealing with their stuff. They think by squashing it down, that makes them strong.
Yeah.
If you think about that logically, that is kind of the opposite of strength. That is not actual strength. And it actually takes genuine strength to deal with your stuff and switch it off and heal it. And everyone who has come to us from these podcasts and everyone that I've treated, they found that strength, which they couldn't have found before. I see some people who have been to not necessarily a lot, but, like Stephen, he's been to a lot, and I've just had lots of things, small things that have happened. And I see a lot of people like that with me. We've not really had a tragic life like Stephen. We've just had things happen. Our parents weren't quite as great with us, or we weren't abused or anything. We've had a good life. We've had lots of little things happen, but those things can be scary to deal with, especially regarding our self-worth, regarding dealing with actually what's happening in our environment now and how it's going to affect us, and also trying to move forwards with things. And I've got a few clients at the moment who desperately want to move forwards, and they're very stuck, and it can be very scary to deal with that. But it takes strength to deal with that. It does not take strength to squash it down and suppress it and ignore it. And I know that sounds quite harsh, but I just want to point that out, because a lot of people do think they're being strong by squashing it.
They also think they've resolved the problem by not by actually, so long as I don't think about it.
Yes.
So the fact that they've been able to suppress the emotion and not think about it is the big illusion of I've dealt with my problem.
Yes.
And it's that is massive.
That is.
And I speak to so many people going, I've dealt with that. You haven't dealt with it at all. You haven't dealt, because as soon as I bring it up, they say, well, don't go there. Don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, people think it's in the past. They think when it's in the past, it must be gone. Yeah. Some magically it must have gone. And is that old adage, time is a great healer. And that's not technically really true.
No, it's not.
It's just something that someone made up once.
Avoid dealing with their problem, probably.
Well, possibly, yes.
Well, they got to deal with it. So time's a great healer. I'll be all right tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be fine. I'll wake up. Yeah. It'll be perfect. It'll be sunny, rainbows.
Absolutely, yeah.
But no, if you can deal with your stuff, if you can face it and switch it off. Obviously, don't face it if you've got nothing to switch it off. That's the mistake a lot of people make. They try and unpack stuff and they've got no real way of coping with it or actually switching the trauma off. You need a technique that switches it off. But if you've got that and you've and then you can face it at the same time, then that's fantastic. And I'd just like to say a huge well done to everyone who's come to us and actually faced that, because their lives have changed. And it took a lot of strength and courage to do that. So everyone who's watching this, who's come to us, give yourselves a big pat on the back, and go and have a drink or have your favourite chocolate bar or something for Christmas to congratulate yourself.
Pat yourself on the back. Reward yourself. Reward yourself.
Yeah, reward yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, reward yourself. So I stuck my thumb up there. All right, Umar, how are you doing? And thank you for wishing us a happy Christmas. And we hope you have a great Christmas too, Umar, mate. I know. A good friend of mine, and so it's good to see you on here supporting us, mate, and thanks a lot. Going back to it, I just want to add to what you were saying. I speak to a lot of people, specifically blokes, who think that they need to not show their emotions, that showing emotions is a weakness, they need to man up, right? And because they perceive that as being strong.
Yes.
Well, actually, what that is, it's sort of being cowardly. It's not manning up. It's not being strong. It's not being brave or masculine in any way. It's actually hiding away, being scared, avoiding those feelings, pretending they're not there, and then using drink, drugs, anger, or any other form of emotional avoidance, gym, to then think that somehow they've had some sense of achievement or they've achieved something by being able to suppress the feeling and then getting on with stuff. I used to be like that myself.
Yeah.
I used to be like that myself, and so I just want that doesn't work, because there will come to a point in your life where your body cannot. It's like filling up a glass. The glass will fill up, and then that's when, as soon as that glass gets full and there's no more else to put in there, and different people have different varying levels of it, that's when the catastrophe can kick in, and you can really break. So by thinking or not facing, by avoiding these things that happen in our past, when we have a relationship breakdown, when things go wrong in our life, when we have loss or whatever, by not actually going and finding what they are and actually dealing with them properly, and that actually can cause loads of problems. Because every time we have an emotional response to something in our life, and we've had this our whole life, it gets registered in our subconscious brain, and the subconscious brain records it, and it's there all the time. I say this over and over again. It's always there, and so all that needs to happen is something in the environment that will relate or have some sort of correlation to their past event. It will re-trigger that memory, and then the experiences and the emotions will come up. Now, when you go and do the DTO, and when we go through our process, and we can go and visit that memory and switch off all the learnings, all the beliefs and all the emotional responses to that, then we no longer get triggered, and we also heal in the process. You might want to elaborate a little bit more on that, because you're the guru.
Yeah, the guru. What, sitting here looking like Jesus in a Christmas hat?
But do you know what I mean? You've got a better take on it. You might want to just elaborate on that.
That was exactly right. That was it. I mean, once you either heal the past memories or you heal the present triggers for the problem, then the problem goes away. So it's no longer playing in your unconscious mind, so it can't be re-triggered and fired off. And when you do that, your mind and your body heal, and you feel happier and more peaceful, and you can move forwards in life. I will say that the strength thing that men have about not dealing with emotions, I see a lot of women do that as well. It's not just a male trait. And the problem that we've been taught is that we believe that emotions are a sign of weakness. And that's where men come from. But I've seen a lot of women with that this year, where they believe their emotions are a sign of weakness. Yeah. And it's come from their childhood. Perhaps their mum and dad didn't deal with their emotions very well, or they saw a parent who was depressed and couldn't cope. So they've taken on the mantle of being the strong role. But unfortunately, in doing that, they've just suppressed their emotions. And anytime they feel something, sadness or upset, they've perceived it as weakness. Yeah. And what that does, that makes everything worse, because if you perceive an emotion as weakness, then you're in trouble. Well, you're actually making yourself feel weak.
Yeah.
So what happens is you then feel weak, and then that plays out, and you feel weaker and weaker until your body becomes weaker, and then you start getting physical pain because you actually feel like that you are weak, because you're not dealing with an emotional response. And then what happens is you don't like the negative emotional response, but you also can't maintain the positive. So you then feel weak because you can't maintain the positive. And it sort of goes around in circles.
Yeah. So
you're constantly jumping backwards and forwards.
Yeah, so this goes on to the pendulum, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Look at that. It's like, look like Peter Crouch. So it looks like it's the pendulum thing, because what happens is that, for those that you don't understand, that when we have everybody's on a pendulum. And so, for example, when we need to be strong.
Yes.
Yeah. So we think that when stuff happens in our life, we need to be strong. So what we do is we focus on being strong. But what happens is we're swinging the pendulum towards strength. But actually, the reason we need to be strong is because there's something that's causing us to feel weak. And because we feel weak, we need the urge to be strong. So now what's happening is we're on this pendulum from feeling weak, not liking the weak feeling, and then trying to motivate ourselves or get us to being strong.
Yeah.
Well, so what we do is we then use force, willpower, and energy to push ourselves on that pendulum up to feeling strong. But what happens is the willpower and the energy and the motivation can only be maintained for a very short period of time. And then what will happen is we'll go back to feeling weak again. And then once we start feeling weak again, we will be like, oh, I feel weak, I can't do anything. And you'll stay there for a little while. But then you'll realise, hang on a minute, I don't like this feeling of being weak, I need to be strong again. So you now start pushing yourself back up to being strong. And what we do over a period of time is go from being strong to being weak, to being strong to being weak. So we have this pendulum effect, which is constantly going backwards and forwards from being strong to weak. Because actually the problem isn't us being strong. The actual problem is we've got something that's making us feel weak.
Yes. And the other problem with that is that people who are trying to be strong actually think they're weak deep down. And they think that this weakness is the real them. And so they're desperately trying to be this. But this weakness is not them. This is something that happened when they were younger that made them feel weak briefly.
Or in their past.
Yeah. And they've interpreted it as, oh my God, that's who I am. That it's become like, a dirty secret in their life. Yeah. Oh my God, I'm a weak person. So they're desperately trying to be this or trying to escape this. But actually, neither of these are who you are. You're not weak, you're not strong. You should just be in the middle. You shouldn't be either of these pendulums. You should be here, completely in the centre. We lost the feed.
Technology problems.
Technical issue there. It's Christmas one, honestly. We'll detail that later.
Yeah.
But at least Alexa hasn't interrupted recently.
Well, that's good.
So that's good, because she did like to interrupt.
She does like to pipe up from time to time, didn't Alexa?
So you need to be in the middle. The weakness and the strength is irrelevant. It's not. Neither of those are who you are. You need to be in the middle. It's like people who feel helpless, who are trying to be powerful.
Yes.
Or people who are not in control and trying to be in control. It's the same thing. You're on a pendulum, but neither of them are you. You've got to be in the middle.
Yeah.
So
and
it's like sometimes
being motivated and demotivated.
That's right, yeah. And sometimes you actually have to switch off what the positive they're trying to get to. So sometimes it's not the negative. So I've had a lady that I've been helping for a while now, and she's been through a horrible time in her life, and it's normal these days, but it shouldn't be. She's gone through a separation, and it's been very difficult for her, and she's been suffering anxiety. Now, for those of you who remember from the podcast, anxiety is either feeling attacked or feeling powerless. So she's basically feeling powerless, she's feeling out of control.
Yeah.
And what I tried doing to begin with was switching off the out of control feeling. And that wasn't shifting it. It kept getting triggered. Trying to switch off the old feeling of being out of control wasn't completely shifting it. So I shifted gears and went, okay, think about your need to be in control. And when I switched off the beliefs about needing to be in control, that's when the problem started resolving quicker. Because it was her belief that she needed to be in control rather than the feeling out of control was the problem.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's what we're trying to get to positively is actually the problem and not the negative response.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to, to get to, if you need to be in control or you need to be free, because that was one of the other responses, you need to be free, these responses can actually, you're driving towards something that's impossible. You're driving to a situation in your, or you're trying to get a state, you're trying to drive yourself to a state in you that's absolutely impossible. Because the only thing we're really in control of is ourselves. We're not in control of the world around us, as you just saw, because the technology went wrong. So we can't control those things. We can only control our response to it. But once I started switching off what she thought she had to get to, then the anxiety dropped much quicker. So sometimes it's not the negative, it's the positive you need to switch off.
Great. So that's the pendulum. We've covered that. I don't think we've covered that in other podcasts, but everybody's on the pendulum. When you realise that it's the pendulum that's causing the problem, that you'll realise that actually once you're on a pendulum, it's very hard to get off until you actually go and find out what it is that's causing the problem and either switch it off or go to the positive response or switch that off. So that's the pendulum, which I wanted to cover.
And you can actually tell if you're on a pendulum. So think about your negative responses that you have. So if you get angry all the time, if you're really, really angry, then think about what might be the opposite state of that. That's lesser. What might be the opposite pendulum of that? So if you're really angry all the time, you might be inside you might be timid and shy, and you might be trying to reinforce that with anger. Or if you're trying to be in control all the time, it might be because you feel out of control or insecure. So if you know what response you're having that you don't like and you don't want to be doing, or you recognise it's not good, ask what's the opposite. Ask yourself what's the opposite. What am I really feeling? What's the opposite of that that's actually driving this behaviour?
So this goes back to what we talked about on our very first podcast, which was cause and effect.
Cause and effect.
So exactly. Cause and effect is, so the effect is I need to be motivated. So everybody's constantly focusing on the effect. Now, the effects are anxiety, depression, anger, hatred, resentment, jealousy, fear, guilt, shame. They're all effects. They're not actually the problem. They're actually the effect. The effect is what we feel and what we experience, because it's come from the subconscious into the awareness, which is our conscious brain, and that's when we become aware of something. But that's actually not the problem. And the problem we have is everyone's trying to solve the problem or the symptom, which isn't the problem, if that makes sense. Solve the problem, which isn't the problem. The problem is the cause, and that cause will be the fact that if you, for example, if you have a lack of motivation, you need to become motivated. Well, actually, you don't need to find the thing that is the cause, the thing that's causing you to feel a lack of motivation. Get rid of that, and there will no longer need to be motivated. You'll come back to the middle, and you'll start doing what you'd normally do.
Exactly, yes.
And so, and the same with anxiety. The cause of anxiety is not the problem. Anxiety is the symptom. The cause is feeling attacked and powerless. So when you go and find the attacked and powerless responses to what's causing to the event, then the anxiety goes away. So you're no longer on the pendulum. It's the cause and effect relationship.
Yeah, precisely.
So we've covered anxiety. So if you do suffer anxiety, and I know many people do, one of the main things is because at some point in the past you've had an experience that may have left you feeling attacked and powerless. And what happens is that in your environment, your subconscious will see something that will relate or remind you or trigger you from that event where you become attacked and powerless, and it will re-trigger the anxiety. You're not getting anxiety in the present, it's not being created in the present moment. So you are experiencing it in the present moment, but it's not actually being created there. It's actually coming probably from a past event.
It's being triggered in the present moment, but usually the trigger stems somewhere else in the past. So you can feel attacked in the moment or feel powerless because the anxiety is a stress state, but it will come from another place where you felt attacked or were attacked in the past, and it's just been re-triggered. So an example would be, if your dad, one of my clients, she had anxiety, and she got anxiety because her dad was very overbearing, and he made her watch a lot of war movies with a lot of explosions and bombs, and she was 4 years old, bless her. She had to stand still and do so she felt like she was constantly under attack by her father. So as an adult, if anyone stood too close to her, if she heard any raised tones or had any finger pointed at her, or heard any war movies in the background or loud noises, she would actually then feel anxious in that moment. But it all stemmed, the majority of it, from her experience with her father as a child. So, and she felt attacked in that moment. So, as Steve said, it's coming from the past, and it's just being triggered in your environment. And you can either switch off the past memory or switch off the trigger, or sometimes you have to do both. It depends on the person and how it's been embedded.
I had a girl this morning. She come to me this morning. She has driving anxiety. So every time she gets in the car, her hands are up. She has loads of panic attacks. She thinks she's going to pass out.
Right.
So she's got the little one in the back. She's freaking out because every time she gets in the car, she thinks she's going to pass out. Now, she's had this for 9 years, I think.
Wow.
9 years. So every time she gets in the car, she freaks out, thinks she's going to pass out and crash. Now, and she said she had a problem with it. So I said, well, when did this all start? She goes, it happened in Spain 10 years ago, or 10 years ago. She was in the car. She was driving down the motorway with her son near Madrid. And all of a sudden, she got tunnel vision, and her hand started sweating out. Thought she was going to pass out, had to pull over. Then all of a sudden started attacking herself. She was a bad mum. She's going to kill the youngster in the car. And ever since that moment... Every time she gets in the car, she keeps getting freaked out because she thinks it's going to happen again. So today, I went to the whole response, the trigger, and all the memory. 50 minutes, wallop, got rid of the whole lot.
Great.
So I got rid of the whole lot, but again, that was not the anxiety. The driving anxiety wasn't happening in the present moment.
No,
it was happening because something that happened 10 years ago, and it just keeps being. Every time she gets in the car, one of them was when she put her hands on the steering wheel and felt the steering wheel. That triggered the anxiety. So, not good if you're driving. That's not
so that's quite an interesting one because it wasn't actually a traumatic thing that happened. It's just she had some response 10 years ago. Which we don't know why, and she kept replaying that response over and over again.
Every time.
So that's actually unusual. So that's really important to recognise that it doesn't have to be a trauma. It can be something that happened once, and just a situation that got triggered, a feeling, a response, and your brain can replay it over and over and over and over again. My client had that with his sleep problem and his anxiety. He suffered a panic attack. While I was on holiday. And then he kept replaying that panic attack over and over again. But it was just a one-off panic attack. If he hadn't replayed it, it wouldn't have happened. So by going back and switching off the responses, but then we had to deal with the triggers because there were so many triggers in his bedroom, in his environment, that kept firing off this panic attack. But he'd only ever had one panic attack. So it was more about him replaying what happened and feeling weak because he was a big bloke and he felt very weak and pathetic. That he'd had a panic attack, and he was having these emotional responses. He was thinking he should be strong, so it goes back to what I was saying earlier on.
It's the same thing all the time.
But there was no real massive trauma involved, and that's the case. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes there's no trauma. It's just the brain has played... Thank you very much for that, whoever that was, thank you. It's just the brain has played something over and over again and can't let go of the thought process. It gets stuck on the loop because we're in so much fear about our bodies and what's going on. We get frightened of what's going on rather than just letting it go.
Yeah, but the other thing as well is as soon as we have an emotional response to anything, we make shit up. We make shit up and then we believe the shit we make up. And this is the biggest problem that I have with everybody, is that they have an emotional response and then they don't know what that emotional response is, so they just make up shit. They'll just make up shit and then they'll believe the shit they make up. Then they'll go and tell everybody else how to solve this thing that they've just imagined in their head, and then they get stuck with that belief. Because they actually now believe the thing that they've just made up. And now you're stuck with creating up all this imaginary stuff but believing it. And that causes loads of problems. I had a girl in the week that causes lots of problems. So, the biggest problem is we're just constantly making up shit and believing it. And then we try and convince other people that our opinion is beneficial. But we do get stuck with that. And
the most common one that we make up is that no one can help me.
Yeah,
that's the most common. No one can help me.
All right, what I've got is different from everyone else. I've got this unique thing.
I'm different. I'm different. No one can help me. That's a very typical belief that people make up.
Hi, Wendy.
Especially men. Men make that up as well. No one can help me. And I understand why that is, because society teaches us that nothing can be done these days, unfortunately. And they've read it on Google or somewhere, wherever they've read it. And because they think it's a thought and emotion in their brain as well, they think that those things can't be changed, so they automatically go to no one can help me. And also, people who, often when we get these thoughts, we think we're going mad. We think we're crazy. And that's so common. Thank you for the whoever that was. It's so common to think we're crazy because we don't understand it. So we then again think no one can help us because if you don't understand what's wrong, how is anybody else going to understand what's wrong? And that's one of the biggest problems, especially I see with men, because they don't understand it. They don't think anyone else will, and they'll just think they're crazy, and that's not the case. I've literally had 2 women, not men this week, 2 women say to me, does that make sense? You think I'm mad?
Yeah, I've had that twice this week as well, actually.
No.
I'm crazy. They think they're crazy.
Yeah, and everyone says it to me, almost everyone, who's coming up with thoughts and feelings that they think they shouldn't be having, that they think are weird. They say the same thing. Am I crazy? Is that okay? I was like, yes, my last client said it to me as well.
Yeah.
Literally, everyone says the same things. I've never really had a client say anything different from anybody else. I did once have a client think she was Hitler in a past life.
I was going to say Wonder Woman.
No, not Wonder Woman. No, that was just you. But you do realise that Wonder Woman was in the past life. That's fictional.
Yeah.
Do you realise the difference? That it's DC. It's not the same.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
Anyway,
what a mistake to make her.
But it's you're not crazy, but we do feel like we're going crazy sometimes because the thoughts and the feelings we have are completely irrational. They make no logical sense, and you can't compute them. The problem is that when we have a response, the reason that we get so freaked out is because it's not logical. And that's okay, because it's the illogical things we need to switch off.
Yeah.
It's the things that don't make sense we need to come up so we can switch it off. Yeah. And once you do that, then the problem goes away, because it's the nutty bit, the illogical bit, that is the problem.
Yeah.
If your problem was logical, you wouldn't have a problem. Yeah. In fact, nobody would. If the problem was actually down to pure logic, no one would have a problem, and we'd all be healthy and happy.
Yeah, so can I just... So here's the thing. It's a bit like... Right, so I've said this before. There's 2 parts of the brain. There's the logical part of the brain, the neocortex, where we do all of our understanding and logic and problem solving. Then you've got the mid-limbic system, which is our feelings, our emotion, and our true authentic self. Now, we've got 2 parts of the brain. Logic comes from this part of the brain, and emotions come from this part of the brain, okay? So what happens is that when a problem is emotional, here... You can't solve it with logic, because that's like a bit like having an electrical problem, right? Yeah? Or let's say the emotions being water. So here's a good way of putting it. So your emotions are water, yeah? Emotions, crying, water, whatever you're going to do it. And your brain, your logic is all calculations, understanding, and logic. So we'll call that electricity, yeah? Because electric parts in your brain. So when you have an emotional problem, a plumbing problem, you don't get the electrician to solve the plumbing. The same way as you don't get a plumber to solve the electrical problems. That's the same as the emotions trying to solve logic, and logic trying to solve emotions. So if you have an emotional problem, response, or issue, don't go and get an electrician, because he's the wrong one. You need to go and get a plumber. You need to find the problem that's causing the emotions and deal with the emotional response. And if it's a logical problem, deal with it with logic. But you can't do logical, emotional problems with logic and vice versa. It's a bit like me trying to work out the mathematical equation, but if I feel I've got the answer right, the problem's solved.
So that's a really great analogy, but I just want to clarify for anyone suffering anxiety and depression, don't call an electrician or a plumber.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to work, I've got to be honest. Yeah. I mean, you give it a go.
Hello?
But
Hello?
is that Bill from Electricals Are Us? Yeah, I'm
feeling a bit down.
I've got anxiety.
Yeah.
That's probably not going to work for you guys. Don't do that. Likewise, if you have an electrical or plumbing issue, don't call us.
No, I'm useless at them.
Because I'm shit at that.
Yeah,
I'm dreadful at that. I'm no good at that stuff at all. Yeah. I can literally undo the mind, so don't get confused with that. It's a great analogy.
Yeah, no,
I just had this really weird vision of someone calling up, going, anxiety and calling an electrician at the Yellow Pages. I was like, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So anyway, carry on.
Yeah, no, I just thought...
It was a great analogy, though. I like the water electricity.
It's
a great way to describe it.
But the issue we have is that everybody's trying to deal with their emotional problems by choosing logic, by thinking about it, by trying to understand it.
Yes.
And there are 2 completely different parts of the brain that are they're not completely disconnected, but they're disconnected. They're different languages. Completely different languages.
Yeah.
And as soon as we can get the message out there, the better. And this goes back to why a lot of language therapies, in theory, don't really get solve the problem, because it's language is understanding. It's in the logical part of the brain. It's trying to understand.
As long as the problem is a lack of understanding, then it will work.
Yes, exactly.
So if it is a lack of understanding, then it can work.
That's a great way of putting
it. But
it.
if it is a very severe emotional response, like anxiety or depression, it will very rarely touch it. But sometimes understanding can help with an environmental issue, for instance. So if there's an environmental problem, it helps to understand what can be done. But if it's an emotional internal response, do what?
Louise, I need a plumber.
You need a plumber.
Don't we all love?
Yeah, don't call us. Yeah. I know nothing about plumbing.
Yeah.
If I forgot what I was going to say now. I know what was I saying. So you distracted me, Louise.
You was waffling on.
I was waffling. No, I'm not going to. No. So if it's an environmental problem, understanding different scenarios to solve the environmental problem, that helps. Because sometimes with anxiety and depression, there's two parts. There's the emotional response and the thoughts, and then there's the environmental situation. And understanding can help change some of that. In fact, you had that in counselling once. You did have an environmental problem, and it helped you solve the environmental problem, but it didn't solve the emotional response. No. But if you want the emotional response solved, you've got to go after the bit that is not logical, the bit that doesn't make sense, the thoughts and the feelings that are nuts and crazy or make us feel crazy. We need to find those, switch those off, and then you will feel okay. Then
the problem just goes
go
away.
back to normal.
It goes away. You just don't even know it's gone. And so anyway, let's go to depression quickly. We are talking about it, and I know that we're at 36 minutes. We're just going to go through a lot of stuff, but as per usual, we've been waffling on a lot. Can't stop. But depression. So let's go to the five
conflicts for depression.
I'll let you have this one. Okay. Take it away, Mr. Shaw.
So you mentioned anxiety, the 2 conflicts for that, but there's 5 conflicts for depression, and they land in a part of the brain called your cortex. Don't worry too much about that. It what?
Rob says the logical part of the brain can be the problem.
Yes, the logical part of the brain is actually the worst part because we try and analyse it and go around in circles.
Yeah.
So, but for depression, there's 5 different conflicts, and a lot of places that traditional medicine get confused with depression is because they think depression, when they talk about stress being the cause of it, they think it has to be a traumatic event, and it doesn't have to be a traumatic event. Most depression does not come from a traumatic event, not in my experience. It comes from a life situation, and the 5 conflicts are territory issues. So they're all to do with whatever you perceive as your territory. So there's a territory loss, and that can be a loss of a loved one. It can be the loss of your job.
Yeah.
It can be your loss of purpose in life. It can be the loss of a pet or
relative
or anything like that. But it doesn't just necessarily mean grief. I've seen a lady recently, and she's lost her purpose, so she's very depressed. But it's a territory loss.
Yes.
That's why, if you haven't suffered a grief and there's no other signs that people don't understand why you're depressed. Well, it's not grief that's the problem, it's loss that's the problem.
Yes. Or
you're not always grieving, it's the loss part.
Yeah.
Then there is a territory anger issue for a man. This is the man version. It's for a woman, it's a territory fear generally. But for a man, it's a territory anger issue. So something or someone has come into your territory and made you angry, or you.
Is that
feel
why
like
I'm depressed right now?
That's why you're depressed right now, because you're angry. And but for a woman, it's a territory fear. So something's come into your territory and you're now frightened.
Yeah.
There's a territory
fear.
I just did that one for the woman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. You just interrupting me. You interrupted me again. You're just taking my territory. I'm talking, and you're taking away my territory.
I am, yeah.
Now
I
feel depressed. Yeah, I am.
Let's switch that off,
yeah, go on. So, then there's an identity conflict for a woman, a territory issue. There's an issue with not being able to swallow or digest something in your territory. There's a territory marking issue where you can't mark your boundaries, so like someone trying to invade your territory. Yep. And for women, that can be sexual harassment. For a man, it could be somebody. I had a client once, and it wasn't causing him depression, it was causing him elbow pain. He had a little team at work, and somebody was trying to muscle in on his team. So he was invading his territory, he couldn't mark his space. It could be someone trying to chat up your partner. Yeah. That's another invasion of territory. So all of these 5 conflicts, these are all to do with your territory or what you perceive as your territory. Now, your perception of territory is different for everybody. For men, it's very likely to be their work, their home, as in the 4 walls, their partner, their kids, and then after that, it'll be down to them. Sometimes it might be their hobby, sometimes it might be their car. For a woman, territory. It can be lots of different things. It can be their home, their work, their social life,
the club they go to.
But it's more like for a woman. It's more of a social. It's more labelled social. It's a social conflict rather than a territorial issue. But that's the sort of thing that creates depression. So if you have depression, just ask yourself. Go back over this video. Watch that bit again, and go, well, which one of those...
listen to the depression podcast.
Listen to the depression podcast.
Yeah, it would help.
And which one of those 5 have I got? Sometimes you haven't just got one of them, you've got multiple of them. And sometimes it might be one shot, but you might have perceived it as a loss and something you couldn't swallow and digest.
Yeah.
So you've got 2 perceptions running.
Yeah.
And that can then create depression and lots of things. So check on that, and then you'll see why you're depressed, basically. You just run through that list.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know that I've healed depression in quite a lot of people, and it always comes down to those specific 5. And, it does really upset me when I look on Facebook every day and see people telling other people what depression is when it isn't. Because all they're basically doing is saying what the symptoms are. And actually, if you're going to believe those symptoms, you are going to be stuck with it, I'm afraid, because it's not going to, all you're going to do is put a plaster on the cut, and it's not going to solve the cut. It's not going to heal the cut at all. It just doesn't work. So, but I've seen less and less of that. No, since I've been banging on about it.
You do.
I'm sort of influencing Facebook.
You're very passionate about that.
It annoys me because people I don't want people feeling ill. I don't want people being depressed. I don't want people being anxious. I want the world to be a better, healthier, happier, more kinder place where that's my take. That's me. Yeah. And when all I see is people spreading bullshit on Facebook about what anxiety is, what depression is, and it's not that, it really pisses me off, because anybody that's on Facebook that's currently going through depression and anxiety will resonate with that, because that's what they're feeling, and then embed themselves more into that response, and that can keep them massively stuck and stops people going out and doing anything about it. And I get that people are doing it because they want to help, but if you don't know what you're talking about, stop trying to be an expert and say you don't. I don't go on posting how to fix cars because I don't know how to fix cars.
No, exactly.
So that's what really annoys me.
That is the problem. A lot of people they give
really
advice when someone has something. I see this with chronic pain as well. When people has a symptom like chronic pain, they give advice to other people about chronic pain. The problem is they haven't solved their chronic pain. So having the symptom does not make you an expert in it. If you have the symptom, all it means is you know how it feels. It does not mean you're an expert in it. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to offend some people because they really do believe anyone who has a symptom really believes they understand what it is. You don't. You understand how it feels. You understand how it's affecting your life, but you do not understand it. Because if you did, you would go and get it better and solve it and fix it.
And if you haven't healed your problem, you're not an expert in it. I'm sorry.
No. And if you haven't healed it for anybody else, you can't really claim you're an expert until you've worked with other people and solved it in other people. Because if you haven't, then you don't know what's causing the problem. And a lot of people, they end up getting themselves stuck because they think they understand it, they think they know why it's there, but they still have it, so they go round in circles. If you want to solve something, you need to find someone who's either had the problem and solved it themselves, or worked with people and solved it for them. That's how you know. Yeah,
don't go down asking your mates because they had it a few years ago, or don't go down the pub asking Derek, who's having on his 6th pint, listen to him waffle on about how his wife had it and how, but she's still got it. So she's still got it. It's great. And go reading websites and just information repeat, because you're not really helping.
If you know someone who's had the problem and they've solved it, then you can go and ask how they solved it.
Yes.
And they will probably go, well, I went to see this person. Because that's how we get a lot of our work.
That's how I get a lot of my work.
Because they go, well, how do you solve it? And they go, I went to see this person. And I've had that recently. I've been treating a lot of headaches recently. Yeah. In kids.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what you want to do, right, Jonathan, right? You need to go down to Boots, right, mate? And ask the geezer behind the counter, ask for some of these special saltadines. Then you put them in water, so that will sort them out. You'll never get headaches anymore, mate,
that's
all right? Yeah? Just mention my name.
What's your name,
Does
Steve?
That sound familiar?
Yeah, it does sound familiar. I love those adverts, those medication adverts. They really do my head in.
Yeah, I know.
Voltarol. Well, I'm like, oh, fuck's sakes.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's advertising something that is just never going to actually solve the problem permanently. It's just going to mask a symptom.
Yeah.
But people do it all the time, and I get that, and that's okay, that's fine. But I've had a lot of people come to me with headaches and things, and they've been
I
down
just told
lots
you
of
where
roads.
to go.
Oh, it's really? I'll pass it on to them. Oh, no, I can't. They're fine now. They don't need it. But I had one kid come and see me. He's 10 years old and he's been having headaches.
Yeah.
And since I've done that, somebody else asked the mum because she'd been having headaches, and she's now come to see me. So if you want to know how to solve something, ask someone who's had the problem and got rid of it. How did they get rid of it? Not how are they managing it. So if you know someone who's managing the same symptom as you, don't ask them. Ask someone who you know has got rid of it. How did they do it? Who did they see? Because you don't have to come and see me and Steve. There's loads of great therapists out there. You don't have. We're not the best. We're not the only ones. But find someone who knows what they're doing, who has solved it in someone you know, and go to them to get it solved. Yeah. And once you do that, once you find someone who's had it solved, then you know it's possible to solve it, and then you know the person that you're going to can help you solve it because they've done it already.
Yeah, I tend to find that back in the day, if I moaned about it, complained about it, went around and had a go, moaned at my mum and my dad and my friends about it, then found if I drank 7 or 8 pints on a Friday night and then got really cross about it, and then not take any action whatsoever, I found that over a period of time, that was very, very successful.
Did that work for you?
I found it really important. And then what I would also do is then when I'd find other people that had a similar symptom to me, and then what I would also do is I'd tell them exactly how I was coping and dealing with it. And fortunately enough, I converted 10 normal people into alcoholics.
I didn't know where he was going with that. That was funny. So that is sometimes what happens. Sometimes if we moan, that comes down to the recent podcast of blame
under the below the line. Go and listen to the last podcast, guys. It's probably our best one, I think.
And also that also ties in with law of attraction podcast we did, because when you blame, you then start attracting more people who blame to you.
Yeah.
And when you excuse. And you keep attracting more. So if you have a problem, look at like the 10 friends around you and see if they have the same problem as you, and you'll probably find they do. And in that case, you don't have to change your friends. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is don't keep moaning about your problem. Actually set out and change it. What Stephen makes a good point in a very funny way, that when someone has a problem, we all moan about it, and it is kind of the British way, in fairness, so I've been told over the years, it's what British people do, and we're very good at it. I know my dad was superb at moaning.
Yep.
And maybe that's where I got some of mine from in the past. But the more we moan about it rather than change it, I know so many people who moan about something over and over again, but they never think of changing it.
No, what we like to do is brag about how shit our life is, and brag about we want to be. Do you know what? There people brag and they're so proud of how their life isn't working and how they're not doing anything about it to change it.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, people.
No, honestly, mate. You know, I am honestly. I've had it for 7 years, mate. You don't know what it's like.
No, but sometimes people moan about someone else in their life, so they'll moan about an actual person in their life. But they still keep hanging around with that person.
Yeah, of course they will.
And then they'll come to me and they'll moan about that person more, but still keep that person in their life. And I know a few people like that who've got that going on.
I know a lot of people like that.
And I kind of get it, but why? Why would you do that? And I know that you're kind of in a circle and it's sabotage running, and I get that, and that's what we talk about. That comes back to our sabotage podcast.
Yeah.
But if you have a problem, chances are your friends around you have a very similar problem, because like attracts like. So I'm not sure he saw it says about us. What sort of problem do we have?
No,
we wear
silly
funny hats.
Yeah,
exactly. So together.
Oh, I know. So I was going to say something else then. Yeah, so I heard a really good statement. Is you become like the 5 people that you hang around with the most with.
Yes, that's right.
And I think that's a very good analogy. So. Have a look at the 5 people that you're hanging around with, and the chances are you're picking up their behaviours subconsciously without even realising it, their habits, their bodily responses, their language, etc.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
and I will say that we do in the past 6, 7, 8 months that we've been doing this, we make change sound really simple, and we make change sound really easy, and sometimes it is. But I will say that sometimes it's also hard. We're not trying to make light of it. We're trying to show you that change is possible.
Yeah.
But sometimes change is difficult. We get stuck in patterns. We get stuck in behaviours. And sometimes change sometimes means changing our whole world.
Yeah.
Sometimes it means changing everything in our life.
I had to do that. I had to change my whole world. I had to change my partner. I had to change my business colleagues. I had to change my career. I had to change my friends. I had to change my social habits. I had to change I had to change everything because I'd got to the point where nothing was working for me at all. I had actually had to admit I'd got life wrong, and most of it. And so I had to make a definitive choice to say, do you know what? My life's not working. I'm miserable. It's not working for me. What do I need to do? And it needs to change. And so, unfortunately, all my areas of life weren't working, and I had to change everything. Now, since I'd done that, which wasn't that long ago, my life is working on an unprecedented scale. And honestly, it's I wouldn't wish for anything else. Yeah. I wouldn't wish for we were saying earlier on about how far we come. And I've come miles, and I'll never ever go back to the life I had with the people that I had. I'd never go back to it because the way I feel right now is absolutely amazing. I'm helping people. I just feel so great. I've just got so much to give to the world now. So,
but you've worked very hard, and so Stephen, because if you know Stephen's story, he's had a lot of stuff happening, and he did not change in 5 seconds. It wasn't 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 2 months. Stephen's worked very hard, and even with the DTO process, he spent the last year working with me, working on himself, healing everything that's coming up, and it's taken time because he's been through a lot. And you really have to dedicate yourself, and he has had to change lots of areas of his life. And for some people, that is scary. To think about changing your whole world, to think about disrupting the world that you have now.
Yes.
And disrupting your friendships, your relationships.
Yeah, but the problem is if you're stuck in a situation where life isn't working for you, the only option is to change it. Because otherwise, like I say this all the time, change or nothing will change. And I know we're saying that change is difficult, but what's more difficult, surely, is to stay in a situation that isn't working for you, that doesn't work for you, that the people that are around you, your partnership, your relationship. If it's not working for you, then why would you want to stay there? And so it's a case of, and I know the guilt and shame, the sabotage kicks in.
Yeah.
But it must come a point in your life where you must say to yourself, do you know what? Actually, my life's not working for me anymore. I've actually got it wrong, and I'm not going to be held down by previous choices that I've made because I feel obligated, or there's an obligation to stay and to stay in the situation because of whatever. And so for me, I had to say, do you know what? That's really I've got to accept myself. I've got life wrong.
Yes.
And so now what I need to do is press the reset button and work on all the stuff, which I have done.
Yeah.
And like I said, I wouldn't change who I am for the world, mate. I feel so amazing. I'm helping so many people. I just feel so amazing. And thank you for that, because you've been brilliant you facilitated that. But but change. Although you say change is difficult, I think change can be easy if you really want it. You've got to really want it.
To switch off traumas and stress, that's generally quite simple. But to change your whole world, sometimes for some people, is frightening and scary. And I totally understand that and get that. And I hats off to Steve, because he did a remarkable job of doing all of that and transforming that, because I've never known anyone put so much time and dedication into doing it.
Thanks, mate.
But it can be, for a lot of people, very scary and frightening. But the payoff is what you get. You don't get a Steve. Don't get me wrong. It's not. You're not going to change your world and suddenly a little Steve is going to turn up on the doorstep.
Anyway,
he might be in your stocking for Christmas, but that's something different. But you're not going to suddenly.
Thanks, Michael.
What was that?
He just said, Mike. He said, always a great friend and good on you, pal. You can never go wrong with helping people. Proud of you. And I thank you, mate. And I love helping people. It's I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world.
And Mike's one of your old mates who knew you from the past.
Oh, yes,
so he knows how much you changed.
Junior school.
Junior school,
yeah,
blimey. Little Steve walking around.
My old rave partner as well. Back in the day.
So, once you change, you get a really great result, but sometimes it takes time and effort, and it can be frightening, and I know it can be frightening, and I know it can be scary, but the result is very worthwhile. And ultimately, no matter what age you are, what time of life you decide to change, there is always time to do it. Sometimes we feel like we're running out of time and it's not worth it.
And our guilt and shame stops us as well.
And our guilt and shame stops as well. But it is totally worth it, and life gets better and better the more you heal, the more you change.
Yeah.
So for those of you coming up to 2020 and you're thinking about changing, but you haven't quite done it yet, then we highly recommend it. There's a great way of doing it. It can be done. You don't have to be the way you are, and you don't have to make the next 10 years, 20 years of your life
or the next 3 months.
As they've been, or the next 3 months. Yeah, you can feel better very, very quickly, and start that process and start that journey to healing. So.
Yeah. So I suppose with 5 or 6 minutes to go, we cover. I mean, we've done sabotage. Obviously, anger is another thing that a lot of people do experience, and generally that when we get angry about other people, it's really actually it's being triggered in ourselves. It's about a weakness or a problem within ourselves.
Yes.
Actually, it's not the other person. The other person is just the facilitator of that anger.
Yeah, that other person just come into our life to kind of
make you aware of what it is that makes you angry.
Yeah, the common term is mirror. I don't really like that term, but they're just triggering that response. I don't like that. What gave it away? They kind of mirror what we're doing, but I don't really like that way of describing it. But they're just triggering off something in us. We're not really generally angry with that person.
Yeah.
Certainly if we keep the anger. So we do get angry at things and we do get angry at people, but if we hold the anger, we're actually generally angry at something inside of us. And that's what keeps it running. So initially we might be angry at what the person's done, granted, because people do stupid things sometimes. But if we're carrying that for long periods of time, we're just then the anger's being triggered in us.
Yeah.
And one podcast that we didn't cover was triggers.
Yes. We did do triggers. Yeah.
Did we do the triggers?
No, we haven't covered triggers.
We haven't covered triggers. And I just want to say...
That was episode 15, I think, triggers.
Was it 15?
Yeah.
I just want to say that Christmas is actually a massive trigger for people. I want to point it out right now.
It is for me.
It is for you, yes.
It is for me. I'm struggling because obviously I'm getting my son tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I don't... Last year, I'm on my own, Christmas, no kids.
Yeah.
I've had 3 daughters, which I don't see
at
Christmas. Well, I see my eldest one. And I've got a son which I didn't see last Christmas. So Christmas is all about kids and fun and all the rest of it. But I've had that taken away from me. So Christmas is a bit of a trigger for me.
Yes.
In weird ways. Sometimes it can make me feel really anti-Christmas, and other ways it can make me feel ecstatic and so it is a trigger.
So Christmas can trigger lots of different emotions, and I will say it's not Christmas that people don't like. People go, I hate Christmas. No, it's not Christmas you hate. It's what's happened to you at Christmas in the past.
Yeah.
It's what's happening to you now at Christmas. It's your association to Christmas and whatever you associate to it. For some people, it's just having family round. For some people, it's not having family.
Yes.
Although you have got your sons, it's going to be amazing this year. For some people, they've had a trauma at Christmas or a bereavement or a grief, and they're still replaying that.
Yeah.
It's actually not Christmas that you hate. It's what's happened previously that you hate.
Yeah.
But Christmas can be a massive trigger. I mean, I've had some clients, I've cleared them, and they've done really well. They've got to Christmas, and they've gone backwards slightly because we didn't get to the Christmas triggers, or the thing that happened at Christmas, so you've had to switch that off. And that does happen sometimes. So Christmas is a big thing for people. So just kind of spot what your triggers are. And everything is being triggered around you. And thank you for that, whoever that was. I can't read your name, sorry. Look at what's being triggered around you, because everything that's a problem for you is being triggered now. Everything that you are struggling with is being triggered in your environment. It may have started in the past, but it's being triggered now. And if you can get rid of that trigger or become aware of it or switch it off...
You come and see us, we'll get rid of it, so it will no longer play out in your life, really.
Yeah, so then you can resolve it.
We've got 3 more minutes left, so I just wanted to recap. So we had a couple of funny moments, really, throughout the podcast.
We did. There was a time you couldn't remember the name of my book, which is every time. not just once, not twice, not 3, but 19 times.
I know. I've only got it right 4 times.
You cannot remember my book.
No, I can't remember your book.
And you still can't remember my book. I'm just going to pin it right there for you.
Yeah, I know. You could give me a copy, actually.
But I'll give... that's not bad. I should give you a copy.
It's only been 2 years, mate, and you still haven't given me a copy of your book.
That could be your Christmas present.
Thanks. Can't wait.
Yeah, exactly. But no, there's been those moments.
Yeah.
What else has happened?
The first Facebook Live, I remember watching back and just seeing I was an absolute nervous wreck and I was gibbering all sorts of nonsense. That was quite funny.
Because this is actually massive progress for you to be on a camera live. Yeah. This is something that Stephen would never have done before in the past. And we've done lots of talks recently in the past.
I wouldn't have even done talks. I mean, standing in front of 50 people and talking, which was a no-no for me. Doing this was a no-no for me. There's so much. I mean, it's so much. I mean, the transformation in just 1 year huge. I mean, I can't, from where I was even at the beginning of the year to where I am now, it's like I'm a different person from where I was last year to now.
Yeah, you're totally different.
So, you know.
And this is what a lot of people struggle with, being in front of people, being on camera, just standing in front of a group of people. Yeah. And so this is, you know, a big thing for most people.
Yeah, I think the thing is now I don't care anymore what other people think. That's the basic thing. I think, in general, I don't really care what other people think. I know who I am now and what I'm here to do, and I'm doing it. And if you don't like it, I really don't care. Yeah. Really don't care. You crack on. You really crack on. No one's ever going to take me off this path, and I'm sticking to it. And so that's my aim.
If I kicked you off the stall, would that get you off the path? If I just give you a little nudge, would that get it?
Well, it could be like live fighting on Facebook.
No, there's nothing like that.
Two Santas.
Yeah, two Santas fighting on Facebook. Yeah.
So
if you've got depression and anxiety, watch Two Santas fighting because it's fucking funny.
Yeah, it is actually.
So, no.
Most viewed video.
Most viewed video on YouTube. Yeah, exactly. On Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah. So so there's been some other. I mean, not horrendously funny, but obviously we've had like lots of different things. So we had the ghost.
With the ghost?
Yeah, the ghost who decided to kick the thing off.
Oh, that's right, yeah, the thing fell off.
We had a ghost in the room.
We had Alexa suddenly joining in on things. That was funny.
Yeah, Alexa, good old Alexa.
So we've had some really great time. What's happening in the new year? What are we doing?
Nothing.
Nothing?
No, that's it. I'm quitting. I'm throwing the towel in. I can't work with this dick anymore. No. That's it. No, so 2020, I think we're going to...
It's a bit harsh. Christmas is coming. What?
Yes. No, so 2020... what are we going to do in 2020, mate?
Well, we've got some interviews coming up.
Yes,
we've got some people to interview for different things.
They've got the lady whose son who had ADHD, and we're going to be interviewing her. She's a master in that. She's part of this Power of Parenting group, which we're getting involved in, which I'm looking forward to. We've got that in the new year.
We've got that in the new year. We've got a couple of interviews possibly that lined up. We want to interview people that we've helped, people that were stuck.
Yes, so I'm putting together for next year. I'm going to try and get together a podcast where we've got 5 or 6 people that I've either worked with or a combination of Jonathan and myself, and we're going to have an open conversation about how they've been healed, how it's affected them, how it's changed their life,
how they were stuck originally, how they thought nothing could be done, their story and where they've come from, and that's a great idea, and something I knew nothing about until he spoke about it just now.
So I've been putting I was going to be in secret, and then obviously we're going to cover. We'll probably go back and do some more redo anxiety and depression, so we can talk about it in a bit more detail and a bit more depth and change, because obviously I've learned a lot more about that, and it's something I can contribute to that. Yes. So other than that, really, I think the time's up. Really, it's an hour in. I don't know how much longer we'll have on Facebook for.
I don't know. I'm not sure. So we'll just say Merry Christmas.
Yeah. So we want to end it now, don't we?
Yeah. End it there.
Okay, we'll end it now.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we look forward to seeing you in 2020. Yeah. And we hope to help as many more people, and we hope that all of you have a pain-free and healthy 2020.
Yeah, and I want to just say a big thank you to everybody that supported us in the Inside Out podcast this year. Like I said, it's been something we just sort of decided to do. As you can see, we're in my kitchen, and it's been really beneficial. Lots of people have come forward. We've helped lots of people, so thank you for your support. For those of you who are struggling, then there's always you can always reach out to us. We try and give you a ray of hope. I know it's we make it sound easy, and I know it is a big challenge, like we've said, for you to take that first step. But once you've taken the first step, then there's no really turning back, and healing is inevitable. So again, we want to thank you for joining us on the Inside Out Effect podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure this year. We all wish you a really great 2020 and having a really great Christmas from both of us. We'll be probably back in the new year with I'll put a post out. I don't know what we're going to probably do, but we're going to do about integrity and authenticity, wouldn't we?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do something around those lines. So, other than that, please go and visit us on my website, healingthemind.co.uk. On Jonathan's website, which is
www.decodingpain.com.
Decodingpain.com. You can go to our website, which is inside-outeffect.co.uk, or you can go to our YouTube channel, which is Inside Out Effect with Stephen and Jonathan, or you can just watch us on Facebook next time.
Exactly, yeah.
Anyway, guys, have a really great Christmas. We love you all, and may you have a great one. Take care now. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.